Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds for people to join in and make sure that I see the live chat. Hi, Dominique. Good to see you here. Hello, everybody. Yes, please let me know where you're watching from. Hello, Mary from Texas. I'm going to start in a couple of seconds. Hello, hello everybody. So nice to see you all here. From Berlin, nice. Germany, the US, Spain, Oregon, Nashville. I see a lot of Canada. I see a lot of different countries and places. So good to have you here. Welcome to episode 4 of A Date with Gelli. So if this is your first time here, let me tell you a little bit about what A Date with Gelli is. It's an interactive show, and about 2 weeks before the show goes live, people have the opportunity to ask questions in our stories on Instagram. So if you don't already, then please follow us on Instagram at Gelli Arts. We will give you the opportunity to ask questions, everything related to gel printing. So this is a show about everything jelly. And I will answer questions, I will explain things, I will do little demos. We will have a giveaway. Every month we have a giveaway. We have a discount code and all kinds of fun stuff. So of course you can also ask questions in the chat. If I have some extra time during the live, then I will go through the chat and see if there are extra questions that I can answer. But Dominique is also here. She's from Gelli Arts and she can answer general questions in the live chat. The only thing is that if once the live is over, I can't answer questions that were asked in the live chat. So if there's anything unanswered and you would like me to answer after the show, please put your question in the comments underneath the video instead of in the live chat, so I can actually answer. Today's discount code is DGW. No, I say that wrong, of course. DWG, Date with Gelli, and then 509. 509. DWG 509. But I think Dominic also put that in the chat. So if you buy anything on gelliarts.com, you will get a 15% off your purchase. So, and besides the discount, we have a giveaway. Every month we have a different giveaway, and the giveaway is meant for one winner, but the winner will get to go on a date with Gelli and a crafty friend, because he or she is not going to win one set, but 2 sets. So 1 set to give away to a friend. And today's prize is, let me see that I say it right. Today's prize is a 5x7 Gelli Arts gel plate and a set of 7 stencils, which means you get 2 plates and 2 sets of 7 stencils if you are the winner. So I will ask a question at the end of the show, and the first one to type in the right answer is the winner. It's as simple as that. And the answer will be mentioned somewhere during this live. I will talk about the subject, and so if you pay attention, then you should know the answer, and then it's just the one that is the fastest that will win. So today's questions. A couple of questions came up and I thought they were great questions because they are things that I really like and also like talking about and explaining. So the first one, and this one comes up a lot of times, is what is the best paper to print on? And the answer is there is no best paper, because with a jelly plate you can print on any paper, whatever paper you like. And not even only on paper, but you can also print on fabric, on wood, on plastic, on glass, on canvas. There you can basically print on anything. But today we're going to focus on paper, and I'm going to show you the different types of paper that you can print on, and also explain why you sometimes want to choose one before the other. And a lot of times it's about personal preference, what you like to print on, but a lot of times it also depends on the purpose of your prints. So what do you want to do with your prints? Well, do you want to use them to bind books, or do you want to use the papers to do collage, or do you want to make cards or scrapbooking layouts? Or so this will totally determine what kind of paper you're going to print on. So what I'm going to do is just turn the camera around so you can see my hands, and I will show you the different papers that I have lying around here, and I will also show you some prints on the different papers, and so you get an idea what they look like if you print on those papers. So let me see, I'm just going to turn my camera around for a moment. There we go. And you should see my table now. And that went a lot smoother than last time when I couldn't get my camera in landscape view, but now I think we have the right view. Let me see. Do I see my hands? Yes, I see my hands. And here I have all the papers, or at least a whole bunch of papers. So one of my favorites, I like to print on almost any paper, but of course I do have a couple of favorites, and I will explain which ones that are and why they are my favorites. So first of all, it's just random general copier paper, thin white copier paper, which is perfect for gel printing because you can do a lot of things with the papers. You can use it as collage material, but you can also stamp on it and cut it out, or die cut shapes from it, or do all kinds of fun stuff with copier paper. And so if you are about to do a printing session without having a specific purpose in mind, then copier paper is a really good go-to paper, as the papers will always come in handy for whatever you want to do with them later. And of course, and the reason also why I like copier paper so much is because it's so smooth. It has no texture. It's what I call hard paper. It has no fibers. At least you don't see or feel the fibers. So that's what I really like about it. So you get really even, nice, smooth prints. And the same goes for the heaviest type of copier paper. So this, it almost looks like card, but it is copier paper. It's the heaviest one I can get here in the office supply store, and I think it's 200 grams. I don't know exactly what it is in pounds, but I think it's 90. And it is very nice to print on because you can turn it into cards, but you can also use it to bind books. And because it's sturdy enough, especially when you glue the pages together to be background pages in your art journal. So that's the heavy copier paper. Then I've also done quite a lot of printing on watercolor paper. So here I have watercolor paper, and especially when I started printing, I used a lot of the watercolor paper because then I still thought that I needed the heavy watercolor paper to create books. But later I realized that also the little bit lighter copier paper was thick enough for the books, because the watercolor paper does have the fibers and a kind of a texture. I don't know if you can see it if I keep it closer to the camera, but it does have a kind of texture. And if you work in really thin layers of paint, you might actually see little distressed areas where the paper did not pick up the paint completely, because there are little areas that are a little bit lower than the rest of the paper, and then you can't pick up the paint. So you get a little bit more of a distressed look. So that is something that is absolutely personal. If you like the distressed look and you like the little white areas, then this is perfect to work on, because it does really pick up paint really nicely from the plate. Of course, you can also print on colored paper, like for instance black paper, but any color for that matter. But what I really like about black paper is if you use it to print with metallic paints. If you print with gold or silver or copper, for instance, you get a really nice contrast using metallic paints on black paper, or on like a really dark purple or a really dark blue. Gives a wonderful result. But of course you can use any color you like. I've also printed on envelopes. I've printed on tags. Printing straight on tags is really fun, because then you can bind them together and create tag books with them. And of course, with tags you also have paper that is more like smooth paper. You have paper that has a little bit of a texture. Craft paper is also fun to use, especially so for me this would not be my go-to color to print on, because I like really bright and vibrant colors. But if you like more a little bit tuned down colors, or more colors from nature, like greens and browns and that kind of colors, then it can be really, really gorgeous to print on craft paper instead of on white paper. A very organic feel and look you get when you print on craft paper. Then, of course, you can also print on music paper or book paper. And when you do that, you will still see a little bit of the background shining through the paint, giving you some extra texture, some extra interest. And it's beautiful to use as collage paper, or as a background for an art journal page, for instance. So this is really fun to use too. And you can, when you go to the thrift store, you can get books with music paper and old books also for like $1, or sometimes even just 50 cents or something. And then you have a lot of paper to print on, which is really fun. Then we get to pattern paper. It can be from like a magazine, or wrapping paper, or a scrapbook paper, for instance. You can totally print on that, and it will give you the same effect as with the music paper and the book paper. that you still will see a little bit of that background shining through your print, adding extra interest and texture. And then we get to the tissue and parchment and baking paper section. So there I have 4 different papers here. So I have here first this paper. Maybe you can see it's very, very smooth, and it's like, yeah, very, it's a little bit greasy. So this is our Dutch baking paper. And I think the best thing to compare it with is the American deli paper. So what you use to wrap your sandwiches or your meat. And it has a little bit of a greasy coating. And you can totally print on this, although sometimes when you print with acrylic paint, you can kind of scratch it off with your fingernail, because it just doesn't stick so well to the greasy background. And then you have the parchment paper. I'm not really sure, but I think this is similar to vellum, but I'm not really sure. Maybe vellum is even sturdier than the parchment paper. But parchment paper, I like to use it as cleanup paper, but what I also really like is to create stencils from parchment paper, because they are a little bit translucent, so you can see where you put them, and they are sturdy enough to not like tear when you pull them up from your gel plate. So sometimes I just create stencils with them. What you can do, for instance, is just fold it like a couple of times, and then use your scissors. Let me just grab one and cut out little, I don't know, triangles or strips or whatever. And then when you fold it open, you have just created a quick and easy stencil that you can use on your gel plate. And the fun part is that when you are done using this one and it's covered in paint, then you can use this again as collage material also. So that's the parchment paper. And from the parchment paper, which you can get in many sizes, also like really big size sheets, and you can just cut them smaller. Actually, Gelli Arts has their own parchment paper, which you also can buy on gelliarts.com. And then we have tissue paper. So tissue paper is like really, really thin, and if you print on tissue paper and you glue it down with something like matte medium, then it will turn almost completely translucent in the areas where there's no paint, and that makes it like the perfect collage material to build up layers. And yesterday evening I did a live class for Michael's, and it was all about tissue paper and parchment paper. And it will be available to watch. The recording will be available to watch somewhere today or tomorrow on the Michael's website, and also through the playlist on the Gelli Arts YouTube channel. So these are all different types of tissue paper. This is like just a normal, the white tissue paper, which turns translucent, but of course you can also print on colored tissue paper. It doesn't really have the benefit of the translucency, but it does like completely sink into your background, and therefore work really well as collage material too. And most of the times you don't even have to buy your tissue paper, because a lot of stuff you buy online actually comes wrapped in tissue paper or something very similar to tissue paper. And sometimes it has some text on it, or it has patterns or little images on there, and they might actually look, give something extra interest on to your prints, because they might be still partially visible after printing on it. And of course you can also buy tissue paper that does have a print already, a pattern, and that's the same as it is also with the book paper and the music paper. And here I also still have some sheets of craft paper, but I explained that already. And then of course you can also buy cardstock paper from a lot of different brands and a lot of different stores. And it is totally up to you which one you like. So I really like this one from Michaels because it's very smooth, like the copier paper, the heavy copier paper. So I really like printing on this. But just normal cardstock, which has a little bit more of texture, because it's a softer kind of paper with more bigger fibers, can give you that more distressed look if you like it. So I would say just test all those different types of paper and see whatever works for you, because that's the fun part of the gel plate, because you can use so many different products and kinds of paper and other surfaces to print on. There is almost for everybody something that you can do with a gel plate. So it's a tool that everybody could use, whatever kind of artist you are. So here I have some samples. These are on music paper. This is with acrylic paint, and as you can see, you still can really see really well the background shining through the paint. And of course, this is only one layer of paint, and so you really see the text still very well. But if you would build up layers, then you would see only little parts of the text, and that would give a totally different effect. And this one is made with stamping inks. I also have some samples here with tissue paper. So this is printed on colored tissue paper, but this one, for instance, was printed, the blue was printed on white tissue paper and then glued onto the pink orange background. And as you can see, you can't even tell that the tissue paper is there. It totally sank into the background, and it looks as if I printed straight onto the pink tag. So that's why I really like to print on tissue paper. And so as I said before, at first I would always print on watercolor paper, because I thought I needed the heavy paper to create my books, because I always, most of the time, I bind my books like this. But because you glue these pages back to back, you don't really need the heavy watercolor paper, and you will totally be okay with using the a little bit lighter but still heavy copier paper. So nowadays I print on copier paper, and so this is copier paper, and the book was bound the same way. And as you can see, the pages are sturdy enough to journal on. So I don't know if you really can tell the difference, but the prints on this paper are a bit smoother and are less distressed than the prints on this paper. So that means that it's totally your personal preference to choose on which one you would want to print if you want to make books like this. They both work. And then I thought I had one more. I don't know, I think I have one here. Oh yeah, here I have one where I printed on pattern paper. This is scrapbooking paper. And as you can see, where the paint is a little bit heavier, where there's a thicker layer of paint, you don't see the pattern paper anymore, and in the areas where there is a more translucent paint, you still see the pattern paper, and it really gives a fun extra to the print. So that's what you can do with pattern paper. And here, let me see, here I have one more. So here I combined a print on music paper, and the stenciled image is was printed on tissue paper and then glued on top of the print on the music paper. So I think that kind of explains why I can't tell you what the best paper is to print on, because the best paper is whatever suits your needs best. And that's different for everybody. But basically you can print on any type of paper. And the only thing that you have to be a bit careful about is printing on photo paper, or because of the coating that's on there, it might stick to your plate, which you don't want, of course. And newsprint or newspaper can leave leave the letters of the print of the ink from the newspaper behind on your plate, and you can't remove it. So if you don't want that, then be careful with newspaper. But in general, the good part about the gel plate is that whatever you want to use on it, you probably can. So that's about the paper. And I'm going to real quickly go through the chat, and I see if I see any questions that I can answer right now. I don't think there are a lot of questions about the paper. Anything right now. I see Marcia's here. Hi, Marcia. And Tracy is here. We have a couple of people from the Gelli Arts team, which is great. Okay. Next question. So another question that came up. I have two questions that came up regarding alcohol inks. And the first question was, somebody said that she wanted to use alcohol inks on the plate, but she never was able to pull good prints with alcohol inks, and how to pull prints with alcohol inks. And that's something that I'm going to demonstrate and also explain what you need to do for that. And then the other question that came up was, I have my alcohol ink stained my plate and I can't clean my plate, what to do? And that's the first question that I actually am going to answer even before I start using the alcohol inks. So here you see two of my plates. The left one I used with mostly acrylic paints, and accidentally I also used some stamping inks on here, so it already turned a little bit yellowish because of the pigments in the stamping inks. And this plate is my alcohol ink plate, and I try to keep it especially for my alcohol inks, and not use the alcohol inks on my other plates, because the pigments in alcohol inks, and then mainly in the yellow and green alcohol inks, they do stain your plate. But the good part is it doesn't affect your plate. It does not affect future prints. It does not damage your plate. You don't have to treat your plate differently. It will work exactly as this one, where I did not use alcohol ink on. It will give you the same results. The only thing is that it turns yellow. And I've tried all kinds of things to try and see if it would be possible to get rid of that yellow the yellow color, and I tried soap and oil and cleaning alcohol and even bleach, but you will not, let me tell you this, you will not get off the yellow color, but it doesn't matter. Just go with it. And if for some reason you don't like it, then make sure, just have 2 plates. Have one for alcohol ink and one for the other products, because alcohol ink is so much fun to use on the plate. And what I really like about using alcohol ink on the plate is that you don't need the Yupo paper. So you can print on any paper. All of the papers I just showed, if you want to print on them with alcohol ink, you can. Because when you work with alcohol ink, you always need either acrylic paint or a matte medium to pull the print. And because you're using the acrylic paint or the matte medium, it doesn't matter on which kind of paper you print it. So for me, that's a real big plus, because before I had a gel plate, I hardly ever used alcohol ink, because I'm really not a fan of Yupo paper. But since I know that I can use alcohol ink on the plate, the colors of alcohol ink are amazing. You can do such fun things with alcohol inks and stencils on the gel plate, and I'm a really big fan of alcohol ink on the plate. So okay, my plate turns yellow, who cares, right? It's a tool, and as long as it works, it doesn't really matter how it looks. You don't even have to do anything special. I have these plates are so durable. You can hardly do anything to ruin your plate. So I have had my first gel plate 11 years ago, and it still works. It still looks good. It has it's just like it was. It is like this one, for instance, that is maybe 2 years old, and the 11 years old just looks the same. It's just a really small one, so it's not being used that much anymore. But the only thing I did to keep it in shape is store it between 2 sheets of copier paper. And that's the only thing I did. So you don't have to do anything special to keep your plates well. So I used to teach a lot of in-person workshops where I would provide the plates for the students. And in all those years, with all those plates I used all the time, I never ever had to throw away a gel plate. I have never ruined a gel plate. And I have used so many different products on my gel plates. I have experimented with whatever I could get my hands on, and I have never ruined a gel plate. So yeah, once you buy one, then you have it for, I would almost say for life. Of course, we don't know, but yeah, you have it for life. Okay, how to pull alcohol ink from the plate. That's what I'm going to show now. And remember, we have the discount code today for 15% off your purchase at gelliarts.com, and today's code is in the chat. It's DWG 509, and it will give you a nice discount on everything you buy on gelliarts.com. So I'm putting my gloves on because I don't like working with gloves on, but yeah, with alcohol ink you just have to, because it really stains not only your plate but also your skin. And I have a couple of alcohol inks here that I'm going to use, and I have some matte medium that I can use to pull a print, and I also have acrylic paint, and it doesn't really matter which color. I'm just going to pick a color. Maybe I will pick another color when I'm actually ready to pull the print. And I'm going to print on, let me see, how about I'm just going to print on the white cardstock paper. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So as I said before, when you want to pull a print from alcohol ink, you need a matte medium or an acrylic paint, and the reason you need that is because you have to let the alcohol ink dry completely before you can pull the print. And as you might know, you can't pull dry product from the plate. You always need a wet layer, whether that is ink or acrylic paint or a matte medium. You need that wet layer to be able to pull the print. Why do I need to let the alcohol ink dry completely? Well, alcohol ink dries so quickly that usually part of the ink is already dry before you even get the chance to put your paper on the plate. So if I would pull a print right now, I would never pull all of that ink up, and I would not get a really nice alcohol ink print. Also, the ink soaks into the paper because alcohol ink usually cannot be used on just normal paper because it soaks into the paper, and you're avoiding that by using the acrylic paint or the matte medium. So this was only like a background layer, but just imagine you also want to do some stenciling or adding texture to it, then it takes even more time before you're ready, and then even more of the ink has already dried and will not come off the plate because you don't have that extra layer. But you can also not add the acrylic paint or the matte medium to the alcohol ink before it's completely dry, because then you would just mix it with the alcohol ink and lose whatever color combination or pattern or texture you created in your alcohol ink. So the only option is to let the ink dry completely. And I'm going to do a 2-layer print and then pull it with acrylic paint. So first I'm going to roll out the ink, and you have to make sure that you don't overdo the rolling of the ink, because then you will very quickly completely mix the colors and end up with just one color instead of the variety of colors you put on the plate. So maybe you can see that parts of the ink have already dried where there's a thinner layer, and there's also little bits of ink that is still wet. So pulling it straight away is no option. Adding already paint to it is also no option. So I'm just going to continue working on this. I have, let me see, I'm going to use this color, an extra color here. And I'm going to use my pill strip that I still have lying around here from yesterday evening, and I'm just going to use it again. So I'm going to use this to create texture, and to do so I'm just using a little piece of cut and dry foam or blending foam, and I'm adding my alcohol ink to it, and then I can add the alcohol ink to my pill strip, and then use this to kind of stamp into the ink that's already on my plate. and this way create texture. So the new ink will reactivate the ink that's already there, and it's going to push the ink that's already there and dry kind of aside to make room for the new ink. And you will not get like perfect round shapes, because the ink is always, as long as it's wet, it's still like kind of floating around and reactivating the inks around. So you don't get like perfect shapes, but that's the beauty, I think, of the alcohol ink, that it's so unpredictable and you never exactly know what your print is going to look like. And of course, that's in general the case when you do gel printing. It's always, even if you are very experienced, it's always kind of a surprise how the final print is going to look. And that's also part of the charm of gel printing, I think. And now this has to dry, so that gives me time to see if there's anything else that I can answer right now. And I see Judy saying that she missed the demo yesterday at Michael's. Well, Judy, you can watch it. You can watch the recording, so you still have a chance to watch it. Even kijken. Could you store the gel plate for extended times on the copy paper without drying it out? My clamshells are breaking apart. Yes, you can. You can put the copier paper on it and leave it on there. I have plates that I have not used for over a year, and when I take the copier paper off, then I can just use it as it was before. So that's not a problem at all. You can also, if your clamshells are breaking down, maybe you can find a tin or something where you can put it in. But wherever you put it in, always add the paper on both sides, because you want to avoid air bubbles creating dents in your plate. So you don't want to store your plate on a smooth surface like a plastic sheet or the bottom of a tin without having the paper in between. So this looks to me pretty dry. I think I dare adding some paint to this. So, and this is the part where people struggle pulling up the alcohol ink. And the thing is, actually, alcohol ink comes off the plate really easily. I think it comes off even easier than dried acrylic paint. But you have to make sure that the product you use for pulling the print, like here my matte medium, I really like the Liquitex matte medium because it's so fluid and you can roll out a really thin layer of it, and you really need a thin layer. And the same for the acrylic paint, you really need a very thin layer. But that also goes for pulling up acrylic paint or whatever product you want to pull from your plate. When it is about dried product, you can only pull dried product from the plate with a very thin layer of acrylic paint or matte medium. So I'm just going to roll out half of the plate with the matte medium, and I make sure that I have a really thin layer. And that's a little bit harder with the matte medium than with the acrylic paint because it's thinner, and you easily have a little bit too much. But the only way to find out how much you need is by experimenting and trying, because I can tell you you need 4 drops, but maybe my studio is warmer than your studio, or more humid, or I have a different brand. So I can't really say this is the amount you need. I can only say that it's going to be less than you think. You really need a very little bit. So I usually just go ahead and pull the print right away. I think I know that I use the right amount of product to pull the print, whether it is the acrylic paint or the matte medium, and I'm confident enough to pull it straight away. And most of the times I get everything off the plate. But sometimes I am wrong and I put too much paint on it, or I don't know, all kinds of things can happen, or maybe even a little bit too little paint. That can happen also, of course, if you try to do it as the minimum as you can. But if you want to make sure that you pull everything from the plate, if you want to be sure that you didn't use too much paint to pull the dried product, what you can do is just leave your paper on the plate until everything is completely dry. Once the paint is dry, it will stick to the paper. It's like an adhesive, it sticks to the paper, but the plate is made to release whatever is on it. So it will stick to the paper and it will come off the plate. So if you wait until your paper is completely dry, you are 100% sure that all of the paint is coming off. So when you do that, you should wait a little bit longer than I'm doing now, but to be sure. But I dare pulling it up right now because I know I didn't use too much. And here we go. As you can see, all of the ink came off the plate. My plate is completely clean in the area where the paper was, and all of the ink is on my paper. And because I did half of it with the matte medium and half of it with paint, you can also see the difference. So on this part, this was the lower part, I used acrylic paint, which was yellow. So the yellow of the paint kind of changed how the alcohol inks look on my paper, because the alcohol inks are translucent. The upper part I used matte medium, and matte medium dries clear, which means it will not change the colors of the ink. Because I'm printing on white paper, the colors will keep their original color. And if I would do it on colored paper, then you would see the actual color of the paper that I would print on, and not the color of the paint. So that's the difference between matte medium and paint. If you want to add a color, you can use acrylic paint. If you don't want to add a color, if you want the original color, you can use the matte medium. Other than that, it works exactly the same way. So this is how you pull alcohol ink from the plate. And it doesn't matter if you create texture like I just did, or if you use stencils, or if you build up more layers, or if you work with brushes, or whatever way you apply your alcohol ink to the plate, it doesn't matter. Just leave it to dry completely, then add your wet medium to pull the print. And then to make sure that everything comes off, just leave it to dry completely before you pull the print. So that's so far the questions that came up in the stories that I was going to answer today. So if you have any questions, I'm just going to turn my camera around again. Let me see. So you can see me again. So if you have any questions that you would like to have answered during a date with Gelli, then follow us on Instagram at Gelli Arts, and wait for the question stories to come up, and then just type in your question and we might pick your question to be answered. There's one thing that I would like to tell you about, and that is that if you want to learn everything I know about gel printing, then you can join my workshop, Gel Printing Unraveled. It's going to start tomorrow. It's a 6-week long workshop with 6 2-hour live sessions, question and answer sessions, worksheets, assignments, a lot of things explained as much as I can. And it starts tomorrow, and you can find all the details on my Instagram account at Birgit Koopsen, Birgit_Koopsen. And I will also add the link to the workshop in the description of this date with Gelli. And then, of course, we still have to do the giveaway. So for people who tuned in late, today's giveaway is a 5x7 plate and a set of 7 stencils. And you don't get only one set, but you get 2 sets. So you can have a date with Gelli and a crafty friend. And I am going to ask a question now. And if you paid attention, you will know the answer. And the first one to type in the right answer is the winner. So are you ready? I want to make sure that I can actually see the chat, so I can see. I'm pretty sure that Dominic is also going to have her eye on this. But the question, I'm going to ask questions, and there are 2 answers, and I need both answers. So be ready. The question is, which papers you should not use on your gel plate? There are 2 papers that you should not use on your gel plate. Which are those 2 papers? Just go, type in the answer. And let's see who the lucky winner is today. I see glossy photo paper, Yupo newspaper. That's not the entire. Yes, there we have the right answer. Marie-José is the first one to say newspaper and photo paper, and that's the right answer. So Dominic will type in the chat how you can contact Gelli Arts and to get your prize. So Maria Jose, you will go on a date with a crafty friend. Congratulations. Okay, so that was a date with Gelli for today. The next date with Gelli is on June 6th. So please follow us on Gelli Arts, at Gelli Arts on Instagram, so you can let us know what your questions are. The next Michael's class is on June 12th, and it will be about clear tape transfers, also a really fun subject. I hope you will join me again for a date with Gelli or for Michael's class. Hopefully see you soon. Have a nice day. Bye. Bye bye. And now I can't finish. I can't stop it anywhere. Let me see. Yes.